Good morning, and man, really appreciate everybody taking time to come out this morning. I know I think we're a little over a week after our last game, so it's a little bit delayed. We'd like to do this earlier, but it's good to be here and great to have you guys here. And as I said, taking time to do this. So I don't think we need to make a statement per se, as much as just we'll start with any questions.
Charles, go ahead.
I guess my first question for John and the Senator is just about Scott returning and what you see, what your plan is moving forward, and that 1 year, whether that's enough time for him to get the team back in the playoffs and turn around the way you want.
Well, I would say first of all, in regards to Scott and that situation, we're very excited to have him back as coach. You know, he's a quality coach. I think one of the better coaches in the NBA, one of the top coaches in the NBA, and to have someone of that caliber coaching our team, I think it's the right decision for us. So he's excited, and I know he's ready to go to work and anticipating a good season next year, and we're hoping for just that.
Yes, I would pretty much echo what John just said. Scott is one of the best coaches in the league, and we had productive discussions when the season ended to be sure that we were all on the same path, and they were very good. They were spirited discussions, and everybody had a chance to express themselves in a very open way, and which is the way it should be. You know, we talked about what do we do well, what didn't we do well, where do we go from here. And as John said, Scott is eager and excited to come back to improve upon where we are now, because we didn't get to the playoffs, so we're not satisfied. If you're not in the playoffs, at a minimum, you can't be satisfied. We're not satisfied. I'm sure our players were not happy. John and Scott are not happy, and that's the way it should be. But Scott is one of the best coaches in the league, and I'm very pleased that he's going to be with us next year, as is true about John Hammond. It's an outstanding team, I believe. Now, this is a results kind of a business that we're in, and you measure at some point. We all do. I do. We measure ourselves by our results, and we were supposed to be in the playoffs, so we didn't get there. We should still be playing. We're not still playing. So if you want to know whether or not we're happy, no, we're not happy. Why should we be happy? But we're planning for next year, and I think with this continuity and the ability of Scott and John, as well as our staff and our players, there's a lot to be enthusiastic about, and it's on that basis that we're going forward.
Senator, you just mentioned that John will be back next season. A lot has been made about the conversations you had about Skiles going into his contract here. Is there anything that you'd like to announce or anything you'd like to acknowledge about John Hammond's status with 1 year left on his contract?
John is contracted to be with us this coming year. Skiles is contracted to be with us this coming year. We're looking for good and great results and a long and happy relationship. It's on that basis that we're going forward. I think I don't mean to be humorous about this, but we all work from day to day, week to week, year to year, and we all understand that's life. But as I said, I'm not trying to. There's no innuendos there. John is a very high-quality executive in the NBA. Scott is a high-quality coach in the NBA. And so I'm grateful, very grateful, to have both of them with us.
Does that mean that there's nothing in terms of conversations about a contract extension for John or for Scott?
That's correct.
This is for either one of you gentlemen. Senator, you alluded in your opening remarks to a path for next year. What is that path? What is the path you envision on the court to make this a playoff worthy?
Well, you know, I look at this past season and you know, I don't look at our team and say it's broke. You know, I think that we have good players. You know, do we have some holes that need to be filled? No question about that. We do. But you know, we went through a tough season this past year. You know, we start out the season, we're 2-1, and we head west. We play at Denver, lose that game, 2-2. Andrew Bogut has a personal issue that he has to take care of. He missed the next 5 games. He came back, played 8, I think, and then out for the remainder of the season. That was a tough blow. You know, not hard to figure out. You look around the NBA today, and you see players without their key players, a la the Orlando Magic today. It's not easy. Chicago Bulls today, not easy. And for the Milwaukee Bucks to play without Andrew Bogut, not easy. And we regrouped. And we found a way to kind of be competitive again. I think we're headed in the right direction. We made the trade. And, you know, that helped us. And I think we ended up the second half of the season, the last 33 games, I think we were 18-15, if those numbers add up right, I believe. And, you know, it's, you look at us and say, you know, there's conversations of that. If we would have had that team for the entire year, the team we played with the second half of the year, would we been a plus 500 team? Could we have had a winning season? Could we have made the playoffs? A lot of would have, could have, should have, but I think that's a possibility for us. So, you know, when you talk about what are we going to do, I think continuity is an issue for us. We sure don't have any idea what's going to happen. But, you know, I think each year that we've been here, we've made a major change at the draft. We made a major trade, and you know, we've come back with a significant amount of new players each season, and we're hoping that doesn't occur. We have no idea what could occur. Something could be the right move for us, and maybe something presents itself that we would look at doing. But you know, I think continuity is important for us. So if, you know, that's the part of the Senator mentioned that with Scott, continuity as a coach. You know, we're bringing back the same coach, and he's a good coach, and we're bringing back a team that we think can be competitive. So we know that, as I said, you know, it can't come back as is. We've got our draft pick. Unfortunate, it's a lottery pick, but that's the good news and the bad news, I guess. We have. We're going to have some other options. You know, we can address, you know how we can change a team. We can do it through the draft, we can do it through trades, or we can do it through free agency. So we'll explore all those possibilities. But I think this is a situation. It's not like I don't sit here and say, woe is us, what are we going to do? We don't have a starting base. We have a starting point. We just need to get better.
John?
Yeah, go ahead, Dan. Go ahead, Tom. No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Senator. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tom.
I'll remember my question. Just go.
You know, when you look at our team today, if you imagine this team coming back next year with a dominant inside player, you'd feel really good about it, where we are. At least, let's say I would. If you looked at this team, let's say with Bogut coming back, or mention any others that you might think about, you'd say all the other pieces are pretty well in place to be not just a playoff team, but maybe a very good team. And that's the way I feel about it. The 1, 2, 3, and 4 positions are pretty well covered, and we have a good bench. I mean, some of you may disagree with that, but and I look at our team pretty critically because that's my responsibility. So I think the job that John Hammond has done and the coaching that Scott provides has, you know, brought us to a pretty good position. We're not playing right now, so it certainly isn't good enough. But when we look to where we want to improve next year, obviously we want a real quality big man. And this is not to downplay the big people we have right now. There's some real promise there with our big people. Epe has a very good future. Larry Sanders showed that he has a huge upside. So, we feel pretty good about where we are. But we know where we need to get better, and I anticipate that we will get better. I have great confidence in John and his staff to accomplish that.
John, can you get back to being a good solid defensive team without Bogut, or are you maybe changing the nature of the team a little bit?
Well, obviously, we've changed our team when we traded Andrew, and we changed our team in adding Monte to our team, in particular. That we've always had questions since we've been here of how we're going to score the ball. That's been our Achilles, and that's no longer our Achilles. I'll pass on a great story to you guys. I was talking with Carlos Delfino a few days ago, and Carlos was telling me about when he went to Detroit and was playing for the Pistons, and he said, I was new in the NBA, and I was trying to figure out the whole process and how to defend, and the new defensive rules in the NBA and the players and the personnel, and he said, Chauncey and Rip stopped me, and they said, let me tell you about playing defense for this team in particular. They said, all you do is find body. Just find body. That's Ben Wallace. That's what they called Ben. Just find body. And he said, just send him to body. And then Carlos told me, he said, I did the same thing here after I'd been on this team, and we had a new player, and he was struggling defensively. And he said, I told that guy, here's how you defend. Here's how you defend for this team. Just find Bogues and send him to Bogues. He's gone. That's no longer there. So we're a different team defensively, but we can still we can find a way to defend. Maybe it's going to take a little more energy. Maybe it's going to take a little more effort. All of those factors. If you say, the two factors, you say, well, we're not as good a defending team and not as good as rebounding team. Well, when you start talking about those points, what's the most important aspect in being a good defensive team and rebounding team? Well, you can say we need the size. We don't. Most of all, what you need is ultimate effort. And guys that say, I'm committed to defending and I'm committed to rebounding the ball. So, we have to have that kind of mindset. If you look at what we're getting ready to undertake this next year, it's a matter of everybody doing their job better. And it starts with me. It starts with me doing my job better as a general manager. And then it starts with Scott Skiles doing a better job as the coach, and it goes on down to every player on this roster. But I just truly believe this, that if we all do our job just a little bit better, we're not asking people to change. We're just asking people to do their job just a little bit better. And if collectively we all do our job a little bit better, we're good enough we can survive this process. I truly believe that.
But John, you look at Golden State, what Golden State had. They had two undersized guards, Monte Ellis being one of them. And they didn't have a true center. And they went out, they draft a legitimate shooting guard, they trade for Andrew Bogut, get a legitimate center. Golden State struggled for years with the same structure of a roster that you have right now here. So why would this be any different than what Golden State did?
Well, it's every team is a little bit different. We're not exactly the Golden State Warriors. They're not exactly us. It's there are some undersized teams that are effective in the NBA. Spark, you look at this, and if we walked into my office right now, there's only probably, you say that, maybe of the 30 teams, maybe there's only like 13 centers in the NBA, actually starting centers. The Atlanta Hawks, now that Horford is hurt, they start Zaza. So you can say, well, they're starting a center with Zaza, but normally they wouldn't. They start Al Horford. Look at another team in the playoffs, to give an example, like the Utah Jazz. They're starting Al Jefferson. He's a forward. There aren't many centers in this league. We think, oh my gosh, we got to stop this big guy. That's not a night in, night out issue. It can be an issue at times. I'm just saying that, I hear what you're talking about, and it's a great point. There's no question whatsoever. The bigger the better. We always talk about bigs. You say, well, why does Greg Oden get picked number one first? Because size. Why does Andrew Bogut get picked number one first? Because of size. We always want size in this league, but if we don't have it, and there's a lot of teams that don't have it, you can find a way to survive. You just got to be a little better and a little more committed. And we're going to try to add some size along the way too.
From that perspective, John, you always said to people that ask about what position does this guy play. You say, well, what position can he defend? So
right.
what position is Monte Ellis?
Monte, Monte's, one thing about him, he's a little bigger than you think. And I've watched him for all these years. When we trade him, all of a sudden I realized that guy, he's like a legit 6'3", so he's not completely as undersized as you would think. But I think he's a two-guard. He's a two-guard first and foremost because he can score the ball at the rate that he can. He's just an undersized two. I've had a chance to coach a guy that was a pretty good undersized two himself, and Joe Dumars. And I know Joe had the girth to go with that, but there's not always the perfect player. There's not always that prototype 6'5" two guard. And Monte's a little undersized, but you know what? Elgin Baylor used to say this. I used to love being around Elg, one of the greatest scorers to ever play the game. And Elg's response to a question like that was, because I would say, they would say, well, Monte can't defend that guy. He's too big for him. And Elgin's response would always be, well, he can't defend Monte either. Elgin always thinks offense. Like he used to think no one can stop me, and I think you got to, a guy like Monte has that mindset too, and I think he probably does. That's how he averages almost 20 points a game. Maybe I have a little difficult time guarding that guy, but I know he can't guard me either. And that's a little bit of who we are right now. We're scoring the ball. We're scoring the ball at a higher rate. We're not defending as well, but we'll get better at it.
You asked about playing the game with the big man or not with the big man, and John made the case, I think, very well. You can play the game many different ways. Who plays center for the Miami Heat?
But they have superstars, we don't.
Right. But I mean, it's just making the point that it's not as though if you don't have a dominant big man, there's no way you can be good. I mean, there are different ways to play the game in the NBA. That's the only point.
Well, in regards to, once again, just the last part on with Bogues, I mean, good Lord, you talk about a difficult decision to move a guy like that. That was very difficult. That the problem with us is we had been playing more without a big guy, having him on our roster. We just wasn't healthy, couldn't keep him healthy, and once again, when I say that, I wish him nothing but the very best. And I mean that. I believe in that karma thing, that I hope Andrew goes to Golden State, plays well, has 5 great years and healthy, and they're successful and he's successful. I really mean that.
Senator, you've talked about this, expressed your thoughts many times about the permanence of the franchise here in Milwaukee, and I would invite you to do it again. But I'm just wondering, as a lifelong Milwaukee, why do you think there's so much skepticism sometimes from people when that topic is brought up?
Well, it's a good question and a very important question with regard to where we are today and where we will be in the years to come. We've had a long and a successful and a proud history here in Milwaukee as one of the older, more permanent franchises in the league. Just as a bit of history to you all, when our franchise got initiated way back in the late 1960s, I was the person who started that process. Back then, I went to see Walter Kennedy, who was the commissioner of the NBA, and I asked him whether or not Milwaukee could have a franchise in the NBA, and at that time, they were of a mind to grow, and they said, sure. Why don't you get busy with it, which I did. I went to see a fellow by the name of Fred Muth, who was then running what is now Cellular, the old Milwaukee Arena, and secured the dates for a potential team in the NBA and did all that work. It was reported at the time in the local newspapers. And when the franchise finally was awarded, another group had emerged, and a very fine group, and I was very busy at Kohl's, about to become, at some point, the president of the company, but very active, and my father was not too pleased with the prospect of me diverting my attention to a basketball team. So the franchise was awarded, properly so, to Pavillon and his group, and that's how we got started in the NBA. And here we are 40-some years later, still in the NBA, and we want to stay in the NBA. We think it's important for our community, for our state, for Milwaukee to be represented in the NBA. Now, in order for that to continue, we have to have a new facility. There isn't anybody that doesn't recognize that and understand that it has to happen. And we're no longer talking about it in terms of at some point in the future. We're talking about beginning to make plans to get it done. We've had some conversations with the NBA about it. We're looking to extend our lease for a relatively short time at the Bradley Center, and we've done a lot of work. Bradley Center needed some financial uplift, which we've managed to achieve, mainly from the corporate sector here in Milwaukee, which has been very, very positive and uplifting. And so what we're looking to do is sign a rather short-term extension while we get busy right now on planning for a new facility. So we're not just talking about it. We are actively working on it, and we'll get into high gear, I hope, soon on trying to accomplish our goal.
Senator, are there sites for the new arena? Do you have a?
Is there a site selected?
Is
No,
there-
no,
is there a site
we've not got to that point, Charles, because it's not
It's not that.
appropriate at this moment to determine where it's going to be. But the thing that we have determined to this point is that it's no longer a topic of conversation. It needs to be activated. And I believe that recognizing how hard it is to get financing for any kind of a sports facility in America today, nevertheless, I believe, we're going to have a shot at getting it done. And the maximum effort will be put forth, not just by the Bucks, because we couldn't get it done alone, but by, the business sector and the public sector and hopefully the media, all understanding and recognizing that it's not a wish thing, it's a must thing in order for us to continue as a member of the NBA, and that it's, relatively important. I'm not saying it's the most important thing in the world. Our families, our jobs, education, the economy. There are many things that one would rank as higher than this in priority. But, I think we're pleased that we have the Packers in Wisconsin. We're pleased that we have the Brewers in Wisconsin. It elevates our quality of life as well as our economy in our state. And I think the same thing could be said about continuing with a franchise in the NBA. And it won't happen easily. It will take a lot of work. But I think we have a good shot at getting it done. And it won't be for lack of effort.
Senator, are you prepared to make a personal financial commitment toward a new arena?
I'm sure I will at some time.
Have you heard from the Metropolitan Milwaukee Association of Commerce about what corporate support they may be willing to?
We've been working with them in putting together a package that they were very prominent in putting together to see that the Bradley Center would stay salvin for the next several years. They were central to that effort, and they will be central to the effort that we make moving forward. This needs to be a broad coalition. It can't be just the Milwaukee Bucks. It needs to be, the MMAC, which is the largest business group in our state, and other people who hopefully will say it's a good thing. We need to do it. Question is, how do we do it?
Have they enacted, or have they told you that they've enacted some arrangements with corporations to commit money to the?
No, we're not at that point. I mean, this is the active effort that has taken place has been to secure the Bradley Center for the next several years. What you're hearing me talk about now is what we anticipate doing, not in the far distant future, but in the immediate future.
Senator, you mentioned the economy, but in combination with the economy, the attendance of games this year, is that an uphill climb to get a new arena?
Sure.
And is it, how much of a battle are you willing to undertake, or how much of a battle will it be?
Well, it's an effort any place in America today, as it has been for years. Financing for public facilities is hard to come by, not just here in Milwaukee, but you could mention dozens of places. But there is a need to get busy on it, to get it done. And we intend not to fail for lack of effort.
Senator, as you wind down your political career, your distinguished political career, and you're here in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, at the beginning of next season or towards the start of next season, will that be your main emphasis? Or how will that impact what you do in terms of being involved with the day-to-day operation of the franchise, physically here day to day?
Well, as you said, I'm coming back home and happy to be doing it. You know, the people who most wanted me to run for re-election were the people at the Bucks. They were delighted. They were delighted that I was in Washington. They have mixed feelings about me coming home. I don't mean that.
That was way before my day.
No, I'm obviously own a team and care about it a lot, as you know. It's not a hobby with me. It's something that I recognize as a big business, an important business, and it's something that I know and care about. So I will be putting whatever effort needs to be put into the franchise, as has always been true with me, but I'll have more time to stay busy with the franchise. And one of the things that we will be working on is where are we going to be 10 and 20 years from now? Hopefully it's here. That's always been something that's near and dear to my heart.
Senator, do you have a deadline in your mind to where if there isn't something in place that you have to start looking at other options that I presume you didn't tell her?
No, we don't have deadlines. We just know it's something we need to get done, and it's not something that we just talk about anymore. We have to have more than talk to move the ball forward.
Senator,
Is that good, Michael? Did I respond to you?
Yes, sir, I just had one more. I'm just wondering, in this community, do you think it's possible to have financing done by all private means, or do you think the public would have to be involved in this as well?
I wouldn't want to, just sort of speculate on that right now, because it would be no more than just speculation. There's probably a combination of public and private. But it's not easy. I mean, everybody understands it's not an easy thing to do. But other communities have done it, and hey, we've done it here in Wisconsin. Lambeau Field was relatively recently renovated with, and of course we all know the story of the Milwaukee Brewers. And while it was difficult for both those projects, I think in hindsight most people would say it was a good thing that we did it as a state. So, now here we are.
Senator, have you had any private conversations to this date with certain business leaders, maybe unnamed, but who would be interested in contributing to a new arena or possibly being part of the franchise in the future date?
I'm not.
Senator, how much do you equate on-court success to getting some success and some momentum going with this issue?
Well, there is, obviously there's some connection there. If we had one of the big superstars in the league playing in Milwaukee and we were selling it out every night and there was a lot of enthusiasm and energy, as with anything in life, that sort of pushes the ball forward. But we don't have a superstar here. But again, if you think about the Milwaukee Brewers, when they were successful in getting a facility built, their team was nothing to brag about at the time. So we'll deal with the realities that we're facing. And I am hopeful, and John is hopeful, that we're going to turn the corner with our basketball team and become a very good team. That's our goal. I don't think we're very far away. I don't think John feels we're that far away. I don't think Scott feels that way. We all feel that we're close. But yeah, it helps if, the more successful your team is, the easier it is to generate enthusiasm.
But Senator, when you look at that situation with the Brewers and with Bud Selig, he had the governor supporting him. Tommy Thompson wanted it done as much as Bud Selig wanted it done. Where's the government and the governor's support for this with you?
Well, I don't really, I'm in the political arena, but I wouldn't speculate on where the politicians may be nowadays, because I haven't talked to them about it. I mean, this is not something that we're engaged in on an ongoing basis yet. But as it is, look, it'll be not easy to get done. Everybody understands that. But if you ask whether or not we're determined to get it done, yeah, we are. We think it's important for the community, important for our state.
Would you want to get a new arena in place, Senator, before or after you sell the team? Would you want to have a new arena while you're still the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks? Is that important to you?
Well, I don't know how long I'll own the team. It's not forever. So I don't coincide one with the other. It just, it's important to get it done, and obviously you'd like to get it done as soon as you can, but that's not going to happen tomorrow.
Yet you're saying today that you're willing certainly to make a personal financial commitment, so you've got some skin in the game.
Would I? Will I? Yes. Sure.
John, as we complete the process of the season ending, have you completed player evaluations, you and your personnel staff? And in the process of doing that, I don't know if you can speak on it because of league policy, but have you guys made determinations without naming players that may not be back due to free agency?
No, that's when we kind of refer to our roster. It is kind of what we talked about. We're talking about continuity, and for the most part, our roster is intact. We have a couple free agents in Ursan and Carlos, but we have an interest in both those guys, and both those guys returning, of course. So, yeah, we've done our evaluations. We think we kind of know what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are and what we need to address.
John, when you think about this summer also, obviously Brandon can get an extension, or he's eligible for an extension. And his comments seemed to me toward the end of the season that he said he hadn't really talked to his agent, but that maybe he would be open to that. How important is that for the franchise, and will that be something that will be kind of toward the top of your list?
It's something that we'll look at and we'll explore, and it's going to have to be a kind of a little bit of a two-way street, so to speak. That something that is important to them and important to us, and I think that is. But it's not something that we have to do. And the one thing we don't want to do, and we talked about this, we've been talking about this for the last couple years, is not put ourselves in a position where we have to do things. If we have to do things, I think we're negotiating and working out of a position of weakness. And so we don't have to do anything right now in regards to our roster. We want to be smart, we want to be wise, and we want to continue to put ourselves in a position where we can, when we look at our roster, we say that players on our roster are good players that we want to have here, and players that we consider to be assets, and that other teams around the NBA consider them to be assets. And contracts are part of that.
John, the Steven Jackson signing was a high-risk, high-reward signing in a lot of ways. People were speculating which way that would go. How much did that impact the season when things didn't go well and there seemed to be conflict between Skiles and Jackson? And how much did that impact in the fact that you got the opportunity to unload Jackson, the trade for Bogut?
Right. Well, it was Steven was a trade, right? I know that's what you meant, trade, not a signing. Right. That was a trade, and it was at that time it was a decision we thought was the right thing for our team, and it turned out not to fit as well as we thought maybe it possibly could, and we made the move, and we've moved on from that, and hopefully we're better for it. But once again, I would say the same thing as I said about Andrew Bogut. I hope Andrew has nothing but success, and I'm happy for Steven. He's in a heck of a spot in San Antonio, and he's playing extremely well for them. And you know, he's got a chance to help them win in the playoffs. So it's a good opportunity for him, and I'm happy for him.
Senator, two questions, Senator. Your reaction to the ugliness in Sacramento, and how do you avoid that happening here? And secondly, do you feel you have the commissioner's support to keep the Bucks in Milwaukee?
Well, what happened in Sacramento is, you know, never comparable exactly to what happens in any other community. And we hope not to replicate some of the difficulties they've had in getting to a new facility, which is not yet resolved and finished. We'll see how it turns out. The league is cooperating with us. They are happy to see that we want to make the effort. They support that. They are wanting to see us get it done. And I think that's good and sufficient. They don't oppose our desire and wish to make the effort to stay in Milwaukee. I would say that they are supportive of it.
Senator, do you feel any kind of time pressure from the league as far as the life sustainability of the Bradley Center, though? Is that something that they are worried about?
Yeah, what I said about the center, well, what I should say, maybe I was inferring it. Everybody understands the Bradley Center has been a great thing for our community. Everybody, I think most people understand also that it has a life. That has, you know, more years behind it than years ahead of it. Does the league know that? Yes, they understand that. They know and we know that the facility is not large enough to accommodate the revenue opportunities that you need in a modern facility today. And they probably would say, if they were sitting here, that without a new facility, Milwaukee's chances of remaining a part of the NBA are not robust. So yeah, we're on the same page with the NBA in terms of the need for it and our desire and their desire to see that process unfold.
No firm deadlines from them, though.
You know, is there a moment?
Yeah.
No, there's not a moment, except that the time to start is now.
John, unless you get lucky, you will have the 12th pick. Can you get a rotation player from that with this year's draft supposedly being deep because of the lockout last year?
Sure, you sure hope so. That's really, you look at a late lottery pick, and that's what you hope you get out of that. To be honest with you, you look at the history, probably look at the history of the 12th pick, and we just did that as a matter of fact yesterday. And there's a lot of players that have made it, a lot of players that haven't made it, and maybe a handful of guys that are starters. But probably for the most part, what you're hoping is to get a strong rotation player at a pick like that, and I think we can. And if we can get a strong rotation player and a guy that can help us as we move forward next year, there you go. There's one more good piece for us that we think can help us make the difference. As I said, the size is something we're going to have to address, but and I'm not sure that's going to be at 12. Maybe it could, maybe it may not be, but we do think add little pieces along the way, and we can find a way to stay competitive and be more competitive, really.
What did you see with Monte and Brandon in that stretch together? They both said it was different at first, but things started to gel as the season went along. What did you see? What do you expect to see now with the traditional offseason and exhibition season?
Well, yeah, I guess that's starting with the end of the question first. Is I think the fact, give us a chance to have a training camp, have an exhibition season, have a chance to learn together and play together. And the one thing that really in regards to Monte is I think we all saw that what a willing passer he is. In fact, I thought at times maybe when he initially came to us, he was maybe doing that too much, maybe trying to defer a little too much to his teammates because he wanted to be accepted in that regard. And he needs to continue to always be aggressive and be a scorer and the kind of scorer that he is. But I think it's in him to be a team player too, and that he's very happy to share the ball. And I think, Brandon was excited to have him, and I think he still is. I think Brandon would love to play with Monte as he moves forward, and I think it could be a fun backcourt. Like we talked about, it's a little undersized, but I think it'd be tough backcourt to defend too.
John, the Mike Dunleavy signing worked. In an ideal world, would you like to have more local connection type guys to come here, and especially with, as you said, without a superstar, people seem to like the whole local angle thing, and with an arena on the horizon, would that help you out all involved?
I think it's great. I mean, it's the more of that, the merrier. How successful you can be is the prominent point in that, though. And no, it's great having Michael come back and play, and even John Lohr, the Badger that he is, to be on the floor. And maybe there's a Marquette player for us at some point, but I think that's good, and I think our fans appreciate it. And especially, it's a Midwest thing. I'm a Midwest guy, and I think the people we appreciate that. We enjoy that. We like that. And I saw that this year. And if it happens, there's other Milwaukee guys out around the NBA and guys that have connections to our city. And we'd always have an interest in doing that if it works right for us. But
John, pending where the ping pong balls land, traditional fives are hard to come by through the collegiate level and through free agency. Is there something that Skiles and you have identified that you need going into next season? If you can't, obviously you've talked about the center position, but is it best talent available, or is there another need that you feel you have to fill going into next season outside of that position?
yeah, I think that we've talked about is and we're still kind of in the same mode as we have been for the last year or two, is that we want to become more athletic. We still love to play above the rim more than we do. So that's an issue for us. Of course, the size factor is another issue for us. And then the theory of having guys that know how to play and understand the game. I think you put all those together, and we like a lot of teams have multiple needs, but hopefully we can address some of those in the off season.
John, you talked about continuity, and that's something that, because the roster has turned over a bit, a lot, maybe in the last couple of years. How realistic is that? That would maybe assume you could get Ursan back. Or you do have Brandon Monte under contract. Mike, you have some nice pieces that are under contract, as you were talking about Brandon. So do you feel the opportunity there to really have more continuity, and how do you do it?
Yeah, like I said, we hope so, and I think in talking to our players, I think that you look at our team and we had a good mix, and I think how did we survive? It looked like the roof was ready to cave in on us at one point this season, and when I talk about us regrouping, I think that's one of the reasons we did regroup, is because we had a good group of people, and if you don't have good people, you can't survive something like that. And then it was interesting to me also talking to our guys late in the season that almost to a man, the players in our roster said to me, and I really appreciated this, and this is a real compliment to Monte and to Epi also, but our guys talked about that they like playing with each other. They like the kind of the group that we have and playing together and being together. And they said, but after we made the trade, it even got better. And I really appreciated hearing that. And I told Monte that, and I told Epi that it's a compliment to both those guys that their teammates feel that about them. So I just think that with the continuity part, that we do like. We like the people that we have. I think it's a good group. It's a coachable group. It's a group that's going to represent our community. It's going to represent the senator. It's going to represent our organization well. So we just got to get better.
John, how do you view Ilyasova as a player right now?
Ursan had a great season, and one thing about Ursan is that he's the one thing you're going to get out of him every single night is effort. He can't help himself. He's going to play as hard as he possibly can every single night, and you can live with that. That's for sure. What he did this year, he just shot the ball so much better than he has in the past, especially from three. And he turned out to be a real stretch power forward, and those guys are so valuable to have on your team. And that's what I think created some value for him around the league too. And it's not going to be easy for us to re-sign him. We know that, but he did have a great year, and once again, happy for him, and hopefully he'll be right back with us.
With the amnesty rule, is there any chance that you may amnesty a Drew Gooden in the pursuit of Ersan Ilyasova, financially reasons?
No, we wouldn't. I don't think we'd look at that.
John, the draft obviously is a crapshoot, but that said, do you agree with most NBA people that this is one of the better drafts in a long time, maybe top 3, 4?
It seems to be, and I think why people are saying that is because you have the real heavy pick at the top, supposedly, and then there's another grouping of maybe guys. I don't want to take the group too far, but maybe it's 2 to 5, 2 to 6, a grouping of players there, and then there's another grouping of players. I think in our range, probably in that 6 to 12, 14 range. But the real interesting part, I think what people are talking about this draft and why it's interesting is because, maybe you could get as good a players 18 as you can 12. And that's not taking anything away from the 12th player. I think it's saying what could possibly be there at 18. So I think it's a very deep draft in that regard. I don't know if it's going to be the kind of deep draft that you look back in upcoming years and say that, wow, there's now like, 6 All-Stars in this draft.
84, 96.
Thank you. It probably may not be something like that, but I think it's going to be a deep draft of, like we talked about, can we get a rotation player at 12? I think we can, and who knows, maybe that guy could be a starter, and there could be other players like that in this draft. That's why I think people are looking at it.
You can maybe trade down and be comfortable with this draft?
Sure. Always a possibility. Trade down, trade up. Well, we'll see what could be there for us.
Senators, you talked about in detail what you're looking to prioritize in terms of trying to get the facility on the board and online. Is there any realistic chance, or do you have any interest in possibly taking on partners or investors that may be able to impact one way or the other if you can do that in terms of a new facility?
Sure, I'd consider that.
Would they have to be from a perspective of local investors or people that are willing to commit to keeping the franchise in Milwaukee long term?
Well, that's the number one priority in taking on any partners is the level of their commitment in keeping our franchise here in Milwaukee.
Have you ever had any conversations, or has anybody ever approached you about the feasibility of that?
Sure. Anybody who owns a sports franchise is always approached several times a year by people who might be interested in buying in or taking it over. And our franchise is no different than any other in that respect. I've had inquiries from several people over the years who would be interested in buying a part or all of the team. But that's not unusual in the sports business.
Outside of the Michael Jordan situation where you came close to selling the franchise, have you taken any of those into serious consideration?
No, that was the only thing that got that far was the Michael Jordan situation.
Do you feel more of an urgency now to maybe take on partners because you have 5 to 7 years, 5 years to look at a new arena?
I don't feel any urgency in terms of taking on additional partners for that reason, Michael. No. It's important for us to get it done, and we know how hard it's going to be. No one's suggesting it's an easy do. It's a hard do. But virtually every other city in America with an NBA franchise has got a newer facility than we have, and they did it. So this will be one of our tests. And I'd like to make the point also that in contrast to Miller Park and Lambeau, which is baseball and football only, a new facility here, we're talking about multi-purpose facility. It isn't just it would not be used just for the basketball, for the NBA. A new facility or facilities of this kind across the country have 150 to 75 to 200 dates a year. And the basketball is like 40, 41. Still a major tenant, but not the only tenant. And I think many people would say that it is important for the future of the larger community in which we live, southeastern Wisconsin, as well as the entire state, that the largest community have a modern, up-to-date facility, multi-purpose, that this would represent. And it's in that spirit that we would hope to undertake the effort.
Senator, what do you think is the first step toward that process? If you say now we really have to be serious, what do you think is the first concrete thing that has to be done?
Well, it's a variety of things, working with the league, which we have been, get their input and their accord. We've worked with the MMAC now and seen to it that the Bradley facility got some new financial funding to keep it viable for the next several years. Building a coalition of people that are of a like mind, because it cannot nor should it not be an effort by just the Milwaukee Bucks. That would not be the right way to approach this project. So we'll spend the next several months trying to put the right pieces in place so that when we engage, we have a good, the largest chance of being successful. And so, we're doing everything we can. I would just point, Tom, without trying to draw attention to myself, but the facility that got built for basketball and other purposes on the campus at University of Wisconsin was very important. I think it was a good thing and had many positive ramifications. This is not exactly the same thing, but it's just an example of how a facility well done in a timely manner can have positive ramifications for a community, and in that case for the university, as well as the entire Madison area, I believe.
Senator, is there any doubt in your mind at this point with this undertaking, and what would it mean for the city of Milwaukee and for the state if the Bucks weren't here?
I think it's important. I think it's important that we keep our NBA franchise. Most communities, or the few that have lost one, have regretted it. Just talk about Seattle, for example. Comes to mind immediately. I think we'd be remorseful if we lost our franchise, and in the years, in the decades ahead, we would say, gee, we wish we would have found a way to keep it. So it is important. As I've said, it's not the most important thing. Our jobs, our family, our education, religion, many other things, healthcare, many things are more important than having a sports franchise in town. But that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done if we can do it. It's one of the things that makes quality of life a good thing. Now that we have this great facility for the Brewers, and the team is prospering, and people love to go out there and spend a lot of time at that facility, enjoying the team, enjoying the grounds. It's a good thing for our community, for our state. Same is true about the Green Bay Packers, and I think the same can be said about an NBA franchise. So it's worth the effort. I think it's been worth the effort that we've put into keeping our team here over the years, and I believe it's worth the effort in trying to keep the team here in the years to come, along with a multi-purpose modern facility. They go hand in hand. We won't have one in the future without the other.
Senator, you talked about aligning alliances with people in terms of making that happen. Obviously, June 5th will be a big day in terms of that.
Who?
June 5th, the recall election.
Oh.
In terms of impact with that. Does that factor into the way you're going about this from a strategy standpoint? If I'm correct, you've endorsed Mayor
Tom Barrett, yeah.
as mayor. Have you had conversation with him about that, or are you waiting to do that to see what happens with the election?
No, I've not talked to any politicians. I mean, that was, first of all, it's probably inappropriate for me to get deeply engaged until I'm no longer a public official. But I won't be, several months from now. And I've not talked with any politician about the things we're talking about today.
Senator, you mentioned the Kohl Center a while ago. That was a pretty substantial ante you made. I think it was 30% or something of the building. Would that be what you would be talking about here, that kind of investment personally, or?
I haven't thought about it, Michael. I was asked a question today, would I make a contribution to the effort? I would. Would it be, not insignificant? Yeah, it would not be insignificant, but I don't want to speculate on that number, Michael.
Okay.
John, are you comfortable with the fact that you're going into a final year of a contract? And clearly, the data centers indicated that there's no extension, at least being acknowledged or looming on the horizon. How will it impact what you do as general manager of the franchise?
Sure, I'm comfortable with that. I worked for the first half of my life without a contract. I didn't even know what a contract was really until I came in the NBA. And so, no, it's a part of what we do. It's like the senator said. Hey, most of us go to work every day, have a job to do, and we do it day to day, week to week, and surely year to year. So I would approach it the same way. And like I said, I'll go back to it again. I'm going to repeat this a few more times, probably over the next few months, that we all have to get better, and it's going to start with me.
And let me say this, in my time here, the group that I have in management, or that works with me in management today, John and his staff, and Scott and his staff, I would describe as very, very good. We work well together. We respect each other. And, although the wins and the losses haven't been what we want them to be yet, because we're not satisfied, John is a very good person. His staff is very good. Scott is a very good person and a very good coach, and he's got a very good staff. So we go into this season with a comfort level with each other. We worked with each other now for 4 years. We're going into our 5th year, and we've learned how to do it well in terms of interacting successfully. And we think we're on the cusp of having a darn nice team. And that's how we approach this next season.
Will there be anything that will trigger an initiation on your part during the season, during the off-season, to look at granting extensions to Coach and to John? Other than winning, obviously, being first and foremost?
Right. Haven't thought about it very much yet. We're taking the job at hand. John is comfortable in his job, comfortable going forward this year. Scott is obviously comfortable with the job and comfortable going forward this year. I'm comfortable working with them. I have a high regard for them. And it's in that spirit that we're going forward.